All right, we're going to go ahead and get going. Thanks for joining me. This is the first time that we're actually doing a webinar, so hopefully this works out and this might be another option. I know a lot of times it's easier just to jump on a computer wherever you are at home or whatever and get a presentation. So I've recorded some, and so this is the first time we're using Zoom. So I would love your feedback after the fact. Just shoot me an email and let me know how it goes. So this is a presentation that I do annually. So I have made some changes just based off some information that changes from year to year. Should take about 35, 40 minutes, maybe somewhere in there. So can everybody hear me okay? Can one person just unmute and say, yes, we're good?
Yes, we're good.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so how you'll be successful in the recruiting process. And I always like to put this up there because it truly is a really big hurdle that both players, parents, sometimes coaches have to get over. So if you can accept the fact that there's a possibility that Division I soccer is not where the opportunity is going to be, still having the goal of playing at the highest level, but just having an open mind about it. The reality is that the process will take place and opportunity will open up where it is fit. And just because it may not be at your top school or at a Division I school doesn't mean that you can still have a great experience. And I also like to talk about the fact that, a lot of our kids are pretty high academically, and some of the best academics we have in the country is actually at the Division III level. So it really is about finding a good school, both from an academic standpoint, athletically, financially, things like that. But if you can really get over the hurdle that you might not play Division I soccer and have an open mind, it'll be much more enjoyable. So these three things are, I've been teaching how to go through the recruiting process and helping families out for a while. These are actually my kids. So I have 4 kids. The top one is graduated, but started off as a golfer at a small Christian school and then transferred. And when he transferred, he lost a lot of credits. So that's his debt after graduating. This one is a senior in college right now. He actually turned down free college. And so he had the opportunity to play either soccer or football in college. And there was a school in particular that offered him a full scholarship, and he turned it down. So if you can only imagine what I was doing at that point. But he's actually done very well in school and worked a couple summers and had some really nice internships. So this number to him is not going to be bad because the job opportunities he's going to have right out of college are going to be pretty good. So he was able to get some academic money and things like that, not play athletics, and kind of keep this down to manageable. This is my smart daughter. She's a freshman at Harper College. So junior college is always an option, especially around our area where junior colleges are really good academically and offer up a nice affordable option for the first 2 years. So she's a freshman at Harper College and actually stays at home. We live about a mile away, so that's nice. And then this is my son who's a sophomore in high school, so we don't know what he's going to do yet. So he thinks, of course, that it's going to be, some big time school, so we'll see. So these are just the number of programs in our area. So Midwest, and when I talk about Midwest, I'm talking about Illinois and then pretty much the states that touch us. I believe I threw Ohio in there. So kind of our region. The highest percentage of our kids that commit within the state or our region. So that's why I kind of kept these numbers. But it just gives you a little bit of perspective of the opportunity that's out there, but also how many kids are vying for these opportunities. So the number on the left is men's programs. The number on the right is women's. And I started with NAIA, D3, D2, D1, just for that same thing. Get in the mindset of having a list of schools, all levels. At the beginning of the process, if you want to have more Division Ones than all the others, that's okay. But if you can try to find some options at the other levels, you're going to make possibly have some more opportunities. So number of schools, number of schools in the nation, and then the number on the right is the Midwest. So boys, girls, Division III, obviously you see is also the highest number of schools, so the highest number of opportunities. And then total in the whole United States for the men's is 918 programs. For the women's, there's 1,216. Athletic scholarships vary from one division to the next. In the NAIA, they're allowed 12 full scholarships for both men and women. Division III is all academic, merit-based. You see a lot of endowment money. Depending on the institution, they might have some scholarships that are quote unquote for athletes, even though it's all academic based or need based. If you get to the really high academic schools like the University of Chicago, Carnegie Mellon, schools like that, a lot of that is basically just need based. So that's where the FAFSA comes into play. But they do not give athletic scholarships. Division II on the men's side is 9 scholarships, 9.9 on the women, and then Division I, 9.9 for men, and 14 for the women. So these are full scholarships. This is what, so for example, if a program has 24 kids on their roster, they have to figure out who gets 9.9 of the scholarship. So that's where you see a lot of kids that are in the program as a preferred walk-on or no athletic money, but their academics scores is what makes school affordable, because the coach has to figure out, how do I make 24 kids happy with only 9.9 scholarships. So in the Midwest, at the NAIA level, there's 756 scholarship opportunities. Division II, 279 for the men, 485 for the women. In Division I, 366 and 742. So that just shows you, there's a lot of kids playing soccer, and it is very competitive, which is why we try to build a program like the college placement program to try and set you apart from some of the other kids that are going through the recruiting process as well. A few more stats. In the United States, soccer high school players, this is not soccer specific, but 1 million high school players playing sports. The NCAA puts out things every once in a while. This was from a couple years ago that says 2% of the high school athletes receive college scholarship. That's athletic scholarships, not academic. The cost of college, this is where sometimes the parents understand and the kids don't. But I like to put this up there. Public in-state, this is tuition only. Sorry, tuition, room, and board. This is the whole package on an average. So public in-state, 20,000, out of state, almost just a little over 35, private, 45, and junior college, you can see the big difference. So private schools are obviously more expensive. Schools like around here, private schools would be like a DePaul, Loyola. Public schools around here, UIC, NIU, schools like that. So just shows you the difference. And then on average, we have just under 23, 24 for the boys and 24 for the girls of soccer's players on average each year that go on to play college soccer, whether it be Division I, Division II, Division III, NAIA. Last year was a big boys group. I think they were in the 40s. And the girls group was actually a little bit smaller. So this is just an average over the past few years. Some NCAA basics, and I start this off in the sophomore year, even though we advise the players in our club to start their freshman year. There's lots of things you can be doing as a freshman. A lot of those things you'll be doing as a freshman, you also be doing as a sophomore, junior, and senior. But just for time purposes, I start this off at the sophomore year. But just know I can touch a little bit on freshmen. Just getting into the program and understanding what it's all about, so that when it does come down to the nitty gritty, you've experienced it. You have some different areas, maybe some presentations like this that you've seen, some financial things on the different speakers that would come in. So you're just gaining knowledge so that when you really get deep into the process, you're more comfortable, and hopefully you have a step ahead of some other players from other clubs. But then the sophomore year, you can start to receive brochures and emails from and camps from questionnaires from the schools. This just changed. NCAA just changed last year. So as a sophomore, you used to be able to make phone conversations to the schools, and if the coach picked up, then you can communicate. Last year, they made a change, and I'll talk about those changes in the junior year. So now, if you send any type of correspondence to a coach, maybe it's through Sports Recruits, the only thing they can do is acknowledge, like, thank you very much, and here's our camp information. It's pretty much the only thing they can say to you as a student athlete. And there's no off-campus contact allowed. So showcases, things like that. You can be cordial and say, hi, coach so-and-so. But you'll notice that there's very little communication because they want to make sure they're compliant with the NCAA. And so whenever you're at showcases and such, there really isn't a lot of communication with the college coaches. And then we can have conversations, just no specific wording regarding scholarships, helping kids through admissions and stuff. So when the NCAA made the change, I'll go to the junior year really quick. When the NCAA made the change, it all goes to now June 1st, post sophomore year, before your junior year. So basically at the end of your sophomore year, most of our kids finish school in early May. So after you finish school your sophomore year, June 1st, that's when kind of things open up. Before that, coaches can still communicate with the soccer staff, myself, and say, hey, we really like the way Ashley plays. We think she'd be good at our school. Could you pass along our camp information? So that type of conversation is still okay. That lets us know, hey, there's interest in the player. But there was no specific conversations like, hey, we think she's a high scholarship player for us. We're graduating 3 center backs. We think she can come in and get scholarship money for us. Or, what are her grades like? We can help her through the admissions process if she really likes what we have to offer. So words like that can't be communicated, but they can still express interest, which is good. So June 1st is the big date. That's actually when we can now start communicating a little bit more. August 1st of that same year, unofficial visits and official visits can start, and now you can start to have some conversations off campus with the coaches. The difference between unofficial visit and official visit, unofficial means that you're kind of just doing everything on your own in regards to travel, staying overnight, things like that. You can have as many unofficial visits as you want. Official visits are actually when the school is serious about the athlete, and more official visits happen in the senior year than any other year, but they do also happen, or they are allowed to happen in the junior year. But the official visit is where maybe they'll put you up in a hotel, they'll give you tickets to a football game, pay for dinner, things like that. At each school, so you can only have one official visit per school, and then you can only take 5 total official visits. So this is, like I said, comes down to when you have your top 5 schools, top 3 schools, whatever, you really want to compare them. You stay overnight with the team, things like that, and then maybe they pay for some of that, for some of the expenses. So that's the biggest difference between official and unofficial visits. Senior year, all the information from previous year carries over, obviously, in the communication with coaches. So they can start communicating, but there is still restrictions. The NCAA is very gray in the whole scenario. Like if a coach approaches you at our indoor showcase and talks to you, who's going to manage that from an NCAA perspective? So it's really kind of just gray out there. But I've never, ever had any type of correspondence with the NCAA or with a coach that has broken any rules. They all know how to play the game. And so we kind of rely on them to manage that piece. And so that, they're more knowledgeable with the NCAA and us. And they have compliance officers within their program that help them with those types of things as well. So once you commit, though, and sign your letter of intent, then communication is wide open. You can do as much as you want. Typically, now the signing is now a signing period as opposed to a signing day, and that usually happens starting in November for your senior year. So those are some of the restrictions and so on and so forth from the NCAA perspective as far as how you can communicate, things like that. Let's go ahead and break now for any questions.
Hey, this is Hans van Arkelum. How are you?
Good, thank you. Go ahead. You got a question?
Yeah, you mentioned that some of the rules had changed this year for freshmen and sophomores. So, in the past, this rule of where you could, to your point, like make a phone call or send an email, and if the coach picked up, you had a conversation. That is no longer an opportunity at the moment.
Correct. Yeah. So you can still send emails. But there can no longer be any type of conversation via phone or correspondence via email in response to your email other than camp information. But they can no longer have a phone conversation with you as a freshman or sophomore or younger.
Got it. That's a change. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Hi, Albert. I have a question.
Bet.
How much information do you advise the players to communicate with their soccer coaches in terms of, I want to go to this school, or, how much is the soccer coach involved with all of this?
Okay, that's a good question. So I will actually going to touch on that in the next few slides, because I kind of talk about what you should be doing as a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. So I'll touch on that and answer that question in that material. And then Julio, yes, the question was from Julio. Do the restrictions apply to both players and parents? And the answer to that is yes. So any type of NCAA rule and regulation applies to both parents and players. Any more questions before we move on? All right. So Division II, still kind of similar to Division I. They have a few less restrictions, but pretty much if you go by what the Division I says with Division II, then you're going to be compliant. They can send you a little bit before. They can send you some information in regards to recruiting materials and things like that. A lot of the stuff now is sent via email and such. I actually did this year already have 2 coaches that have actually sent letters, old school, wrote out the letter to the players. So that still happens, but not as much anymore. Most of it is electronic. And then once that, there's no limit to the number of calls by college coaches beginning the June 15th. So unlike Division I, where there's some restrictions in the amount of times, there is no limit there. They can have college contact with you a little bit earlier than Division I, so beginning June 15th. And then you can begin to take official visits on June 15th of your junior year. So a few less or a little bit earlier time slot. And the reason why they do this is because they want to make it so that Division II, Division III schools have a fair opportunity. And so there's less restrictions for a Division II school because they know they have to compete with Division I, because most players want to play at the Division I level. So this is some of the ways in which the NCAA allows them to do things a little bit earlier, maybe a little bit less restrictions to give them that fair opportunity. So official visits, and then same thing as Division I as far as limit to 5 official visits. So that's at each level. So you can take 5 at the Division I level, 5 at the Division II level, separate. So these are all separate from Division I to Division II. Division III has far less. So, you play in our indoor showcase as a freshman, and there's colleges there, and a college coach walks up to you and says, wow, hey, Mike, I really like the way you play. And you're like, should I be talking to this guy? If it's a Division III coach, there are no restrictions. So again, goes back to what I just said. They need to recruit a high-level athlete, and the only way they can entice these kids away from the Division I is to be able to show them what they have. And so far less restrictions from a Division III level. So phone calls and such can happen or unlimited and earlier. They can have off-campus contact. official visits and such start a little bit earlier, and then there's no limit to the amount of official visits to Division III schools. And then I don't have NAIA up there, but the NAIA is very comparable to Division III. So, but again, if we go by if we go by the NCAA rules, then you'll abide by the NAIA rules as well. Sorry for the confusion. So NAIA has restrictions just like the NCAA, but much less. And you know what? I'll go ahead and talk about NAIA really quick. Back in the day, let's just say, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, the NAIA was is another form of athletic association. And the big concern with the NAIA back in the day was there was far less restrictions from both an academic standpoint and an athletic standpoint. So you would get, 27-year-old players from other countries that have already tried to play pro or maybe did play a little bit of pro, never went to college, and the NAIA would let them come over and play. So you would have an 18-year-old kid seriously playing against a 27-year-old man. That's changed. It's no longer that way. So the NAIA is actually very comparable to the NCAA now, as well as the academic piece. A lot of the NAIA schools are church-based, affiliation with churches or private schools, and a lot of their academics were accredited, but now that's not the case. With the type of education we can get in the United States via online and all that stuff, the accreditation has drastically changed, and that includes NAIA schools. So I believe NAIA schools are a great option. That Christian school that my son chose to play golf at was an NAIA school, and it was just a little bit too small for him. But he received an athletic scholarship. He had some academic money, so that very well can be an option for you as well. Okay, so now we're going to touch about what should you be doing depending on what year you are in high school. So as a freshman, you can start to look at the different campuses. Just get an idea. Anytime you take a road trip, whether it be for family to go visit or vacation, or because you guys are playing an away game or something, you don't have to be interested in the college, but just go drive around the campus and see the difference between a rural campus and an urban campus, traditional type brick buildings. There's many you can start to get an idea of what you want from a school perspective just by looking at different campuses. Start off by getting good grades in high school. It's always good to start strong and finish strong. We do have kids all the time that finally figure it out in their junior year, and now their GPA's got to go up 4 or 5 points, and it just can't happen. It's so hard to get your GPA up. So if there are any players listening to this webinar, start off by getting really good grades. Talk to your high school counselor. Make sure that they're aware that you want to play soccer in college, because there are some targets that you have to hit from an NCAA perspective. So make sure that your high school counselor knows that you want to potentially play college soccer. Get involved in extracurricular activities. This is actually becoming more and more important. There are a lot of schools that are starting to go test optional. And what that means is they're not requiring ACT, SAT scores, but they're looking more about the overall student athlete. And so, so this is why, and this is also something that is new for soccer staff as well, because in many ways, if we play at the DA level, there's not a lot of extra time to do other things. But here we are saying that it's important that you do extra things. And so I'm coaching the players and parents to do extracurricular activities, and then I'm also coaching the soccer staff to allow it. The biggest thing with this is communication. So how do I communicate well with the soccer staff if I'm going to miss something? Obviously, any type of game or anything like that, then hopefully the soccer takes precedence. But extracurricular activities are important, and extracurricular activities outside of soccer, with your high school, with your church, whatever it may be. Whatever you can do to put on your resume that's going to make it look like you're going to be engaged as a student athlete into the university. That's important. I have a colleague that has done some admissions work, and she was actually at a conference, and a representative from Duke University admissions was there, and they are a school that's going test optional. And what they're looking at is what kind of student are they in high school? Are they gonna be all in for what Duke has to offer? What type of roommate are they going to be when they're at Duke? So those are the types of things they're looking at. And so extracurricular activities, getting referral letters. If you're not in any extracurricular activities, then you're not going to be able to get those referral letters from the people that are in charge of those. So I think I've talked a little bit too much about that, but that's how important it is. Create your Sports Recruits profile. This is the new platform that we've done this year. I know I've already presented on it. If you're going, what Sports Recruits profile? Shoot me an email. It's very important. Get it rolling. There's not a ton of information as a freshman. Like I said before, the more you're familiar with the whole program, the better off you're going to be. It is an unbelievable platform, and we're having a ton of success already. And even the college coaches that I talk to really like it. So it's going to be a very short period of time before other clubs start to jump on this. So take advantage of it while you can. Towards the end of your freshman year, start to get an idea of getting a list of schools. I always like to say 10 to 15 schools as a start. If you want to start off with, 8, 9 Division I's, a couple Division II's, maybe if you think academics are going to be really important, start to look at the Division III, high academic schools, kind of go from there. You can share your list with the soccer's coaches. More and more as we get going with the Sports Recruits, I'm going to encourage them. That I've already set up the coaches of each age group to have the ability to go onto Sports Recruits. We've already had a couple colleges ask about players, and so we have had soccer's coaches correspond with college coaches on Sports Recruits. So it is a good idea to share with the coaches your list. And then listen to their input. We recognize that as a freshman and even as a sophomore, it's hard to gauge a level because there's going to be a lot of development still. But there's nothing wrong with putting together your list, sharing it with the soccer's staff, share it with myself, and then we can kind of go from there. I will tell you this, that if you show me your initial list and it has all the Big Ten schools and a couple ACC schools, then of course I'm going to encourage you to mix it up a little bit and put some other schools in there. So, but as into your freshman year, going into your sophomore year, there's nothing wrong with building your list of schools. Participate in soccer's events, community service projects, showcases, anything like that. The more you participate in the soccer stuff, the more you're going to set yourself apart from other players. Sophomore year, keep the grades up. Start to build a solid list of schools. This is where now you're starting to get an idea of maybe what you want to study. So that might change your list a little bit. Maybe you've gone to a couple ID camps and got some feedback. That might change your list a little bit. So now your list is starting to develop, and it's starting to also have a little bit of feedback from schools. Now, I say that with a little bit of hesitation. If you go to a college ID camp and you get a really good evaluation from the coach, that does not mean that they're recruiting you. That simply means that, hey, you had a nice camp, right? So don't think that because you get an evaluation from a coach that, all right, I'm all in, man. This is my top school. I really want to go there. Communicate well with them. Take that in stride. But just keep it in mind that that could be your first step as opposed to thinking that the scholarship is coming. So start to communicate with the colleges. This can be done via Sports Recruits. Stay engaged. Again, they can't correspond back to you, but I always tell kids, like, pay attention to what's going on with their program. And as a sophomore, as a freshman, there's nothing wrong with sending an email a month and just saying, hey, notice you guys had a great game against Boston University. Good luck this week. Something as simple as that. It just keeps you at the top of their list in regards to communication. we've actually had kids lose opportunity for bad communication. So it can go both ways. Good communication is always going to keep your name at the top of their list or in their minds. Bad communication just moves you down the list. And I had a coach say, "Hey, what's going on with so and so?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, "Well, we haven't heard from him in a while, and we really liked him." And I engaged with the boy they were talking about, and his bad communication almost lost him an opportunity at a school. Attend camps and games on schools on your list. So what I mean by this is go watch them play. So I put out an email earlier in the year about ESPN Plus, an app. It's like $5. Allows you to watch a lot of sports, including college soccer. But we are very fortunate to have so much opportunity around here. So go to soccer colleges, campuses, and watch games. And attend camps at those colleges as well. Participate in soccer's events. Start recording some games for highlights. Sophomore year, just again, there's not a lot of pressure in your sophomore year, but you can show development. So you can have some highlights as a sophomore, and then as you continue to develop, show more and more highlights so that you can show some of the improvements that you have. Community service projects, extracurricular activities. I put in here now as a sophomore, ACT, SAT prep. So the Weathersby Unofficial is the company that we're using. Again, there's been a couple emails and a presentation for them. So if you have questions on that, let me know. Interesting thing about the
that's good. Allie, what ice cream from Goldberg's? What do you want?
Chocolate ice cream with nerds.
Hey, Allie.
Allie wants chocolate ice cream with
Hey,
nerds.
Allie, push mute on your screen. Unless you want to get us all ice cream. Okay, so the ACT, SAT. Interesting fact, in the presentation, they said that a very high percentage, I think it was like 75% of the information that is questioned on the ACT is actually taught before the 8th grade or before the 6th grade or 8th grade. So taking the test early, a lot of kids actually score better. The reason why test prep is so prevalent is because from the time you stop receiving grammar education in the 6th, 7th, 8th grade to the junior year, you forget all that stuff. So test prep is so huge because so many kids forget about the information that were taught 3 or 4 years ago. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So there's no limitations to how many times you can take the ACT or SAT. You just simply have to pay the fee. So take it as a sophomore where there's no pressure. Don't pay for prep. Take it, see where your score is, and then kind of go from there. The Weathersby Unofficial is only $10 a month. It's all via text. It's a really cool program. So email me if you have questions about that. And again, just watch some college soccer. Junior year is where it's hot and heavy. Junior year is where most of our kids commit. I always like to say, have a goal to commit by the end of your junior year. It may not happen, but there's nothing wrong with having that goal. Especially now with the new rules, I would say that the processes are probably going to be a little bit later for kids, but still have that goal. Junior year, again, grades, ACT, SAT, keep all those things rolling. Start to narrow down your list based off of feedback that you're getting. So this goes back to my Division I, Division II, and Division III. If you have all Division I schools on your list and the feedback that you're getting from them isn't the most positive, or you don't see to be getting the opportunity that you thought, now's the time to start mixing in some Division II, Division IIIs, at least to get them interested. The last thing you want to do is reach out to a school your senior year in December and say, hey, I'm really interested in your school. Just because they're lower divisions doesn't mean they're not recruiting kids early. So there may not be opportunity by the time you reach out to them in your senior year. So this is a good time. Junior year, start to get an idea of maybe opening up your opportunities at the other levels. Consistent communication with the schools. Attend camps specific to the schools. You can ask colleges ahead of time, hey, do you think it's a good idea for me to come to this camp? A lot of times the colleges in our area get to see our kids play a lot. So, spend your money and time wisely. It might not, you don't have to go to every single camp, but let's say they're bringing in 3 players that they want to compare you against. So that might be a good camp to attend. So make sure you're communicating and being abreast of when those camps are being offered. Start taking some unofficial visits. Keep the community service up. Register with the NCAA, NAIA. If you are getting good feedback, if you do believe that there's going to be some opportunity at the NCAA Division I, Division II level, you have to register via their, what's it called? Portal, via the NCAA or the NAIA portal. So you have to get a number that allows you to receive athletic scholarship money. The other thing it does is it makes sure that you are compliant via all your classes and education and stuff. But again, if you talk to your counselor as a freshman, you should be okay in regards to making sure you're taking core classes and stuff. Clearinghouse was the word I was looking for, the NCAA clearinghouse. Same thing, if you're having to, if the schools that are most interested in you are in the NAIA, then you also have to register for them to get your clearinghouse number. So junior year is a good time to do that. Continue to watch soccer games, go to games, and continue with your extracurricular activities. Senior year, finish strong academically. You know, even if you're committed, let's say you're committed as a junior, and you're like, yes, I know, I know where I'm going to school. They like me as a soccer player. I don't have to do anything. But rather, the soccer coach has nothing to do with admission. Should say that. Some schools, the soccer coaches have nothing to do with admissions. You still have to get into the school. So even though based off your transcripts and your grade point average and such, it may be looking good, you still have to put in an application. So if you don't finish strong from an academic standpoint, there is a chance where you'll be in trouble, and the admissions will be coming and saying, hey, what's going on with this math grade? We noticed that you've been struggling over the last 2 semesters. So finish strong academically. A couple points on the ACT or SAT can mean thousands of dollars. So keep taking it. If you look into a school and you know that your scholarship offer is this from an athletic standpoint, and you look at what type of money you can get from an academic standpoint, and by increasing your ACT by 2 points, you get an extra $4,000 or $5,000. Why not? Do a little test prep and keep taking it until you get to the score. If you've taken it a few times and you just can't, there's no way you can get higher, then okay, but there's nothing wrong with trying to see if you can get some more of that academic money. And then this is where it's crunch time. This is where I have to have a lot of hard conversations, which I have no problem doing it because I love helping kids. But I have to have conversations every year that say, hey, where's your opportunity? It's time to drop the dream school off your list. You don't want to miss out on the opportunity of this school that likes you. So let's strongly consider saying yes to this school. Consistent communication with the coaches. Even if you're committed, they still want to know how things are going. So be a good communicator. I attend camps. This is mainly for those that are obviously uncommitted, but this needs to be specific. Like you need to know, hey, if I come to this camp, is there opportunity? You're in your senior year. We can communicate with them regularly. So there's nothing. I send emails to college coaches all the time. Hey, so-and-so is interested in coming to your camp. Is there still any opportunity for the 2020 class? There may not be opportunity. So we want to make sure that we're making sure that you're spending your money and time wisely and attending camps where there is opportunity. Participate in soccer's events, community service, things like that. And then, like I said, if you have an opportunity at a school, you're in your senior year, strongly consider the opportunity because it may go away. All right, questions? That either means that the presentation was really good or it wasn't, or people can't find their mute button.
So I do have a question. This
Okay,
is
good.
Agnieszka Matuszek.
Yes.
Yeah, so I cannot still somehow imagine how this recruiting goes. I mean, are you saying that anybody can be recruited by, doing the website, the sports recruit, and then going to camps, attending the soccer events. I mean, is it enough to, what if I do all those things and still not be recruited?
Okay, so there is opportunity for every single soccer player that wants to play. You just have to be able to follow the recruiting process, your process as it develops. So where kids get hung up is they have those dream schools, or they have the desire to play in a certain conference or at a certain school, and or maybe they get some feedback from a school that's positive, so they put all their eggs in one basket, and then all of a sudden, a short time later, they find out that coach isn't interested, or there's no opportunity at a school. So now they go and find another school. So yes, the whole purpose of our kids and the soccer's club offering this type of program is that we believe that every single kid that's in our club, if they want to, they can play college soccer. And it really just depends on all the factors: the level of play in which you can play at, your academic scores, the financial piece of the family. All those factors come into play. But the short answer to your question, yes, which is why we have this program. And then if you wanted to sit down and chat, shoot me an email, and I can be a little bit more specific with that.
Okay, I'll do it, because I'm not even so much interested in the scholarship. It's just, I mean, there are so many, players that want to play. So my question would be like, is there a place for every player, right? But
Yeah.
You're saying yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yep.
And those coaches, they come to you, or they also contact the players through that website? How does it usually happen?
So there's many different ways. Sometimes the coaches see our players at showcases, starting with communication through Sports Recruits. One of the nice things about Sports Recruits is if a college coach receives any type of correspondence from myself or any other player, that gives them access with a login to view the rest of our club. So we've already gotten coaches that have gone on to our Sports Recruits and browsed our players and sent emails. So there's many different ways in which you can get connected with those college coaches. And I always like to say every player's process is different, and every school's process is different. So you can't compare yourself to other players. You can only compare yourself to what your process and how your process is going. And then one school may do things a little bit different from the next. So yeah, shoot me that email and let's set up either a phone conversation or maybe a short meeting in person, and I'll be happy to help you out.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions? Okay, so I did record this. I will probably put it up on the calendar. Hopefully it's just a link I could put on the calendar under college placement, but I will send out an email with that. And then again, first time I'm ever doing this from a webinar perspective. So by all means, if you want to shoot me a quick email or text or something, let me know what your thoughts are. That would be very much appreciated. So if no other questions within the next 30 seconds, I'm going to go ahead and stop the meeting.
Thanks,
Hey, Albert.
Yes.
Could you talk quickly about highlight reels and how important they are, or where you start with that whole thing?
Yeah, you bet. So I never was really big on highlights, only because, I believe that there aren't many colleges and coaches that are going to recruit a kid based off of highlights. They're always going to want to see you play live. And the other reason for that is that the leagues and the platforms that we play in, we get a ton of exposure for our kids. However, that was, it's becoming more and more easier, so to speak, to create a highlight. And so I don't see a problem with putting a few, 90-second, 2-minute highlight things up, putting it onto your Sports Recruits, especially if the schools that you might be reaching out to are out of our region and might not have the opportunity to see you play. That might spark some interest. they're still going to want to see you play, but it might give them a little bit of an idea of some of the skill set that you have. So my perspective on highlights have changed a little bit. I still don't think that they're greatly important, but they might be important to certain individuals and certain schools. Does that help?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
I believe I heard another question out there. Okay. If nobody else had any questions, thank you so much for participating. And again, shoot me an email or such if you have any questions or feedback. Thanks so much, guys. Oh, wait, hold on. Okay, good. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it. Take care.
Thank you.
I really like this.
Yeah, I like the format. It's
Exactly.
you know.
You get the interaction